Welcome into OutKick the show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. We got a lot to dive into here on the Tuesday edition of the program, 100 Days of Trump and Vance 2.0. We will discuss, but first, PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With PrizePicks, it's always just you against the number, whether it's the NBA, whether it's the NHL, whether it's Major League Baseball, and I've got a pick coming up for you that mixes multiple different sports. You can cash in right now. Don't miss the last chance to add your favorite players from the court, from the ice, from the diamond, whatever you like, points, rebounds, assists, hits, RBIs, whatever your stat is, you can get hooked up. You can turn your knowledge of your favorite athletes and your favorite sports teams into real money. Just pick 2 or more players. You can play in California. You can play in Texas. You can play in Georgia. Nearly 40 states, 13 million people play along. PrizePicks code OutKick. Our picks, actually courtesy of Adam, who we're coming off a win thanks to Adam's brilliant selections. This is Adam again. I'm co-signing. PrizePicks code OutKick. Austin Riley, Braves starting to cook a little bit. Down to, what are the Braves, 13-15, I think, right now after the 0-7 start. What is that, 13-8? Not an incredible rate, but moving back 13 and whatever the math is, moving back rapidly towards 500 thanks to getting to play the awful Rockies. Hopefully they keep the momentum going. Austin Riley, more than 1/2 of a hit tonight. LeBron James in a must-win game tomorrow. This is Wednesday night. The Lakers in the playoffs against the Minnesota Timberwolves. The LeBron James, more than 4.5 assists. This is tonight as the Knicks try to close out the Detroit Pistons in Game 5. I believe it's Game 5. They're up 3-1. I've got Tobias Harris, more than 1/2 three-pointer made. And then Luka Doncic, more than 2.5 three-pointers made on Wednesday. So we've got a baseball game tonight, basketball game tonight, also a basketball game tomorrow. We're taking more on Luka made threes, more on Tobias Harris made threes, more on LeBron assists, and more on Austin Riley hits. If that hits, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, that is a 2-to-1 payout. And you get $50 when you play $5 simply by going to PrizePicks using the code OutKick for $50. That's download the app, PrizePicks, code OutKick, $50, PrizePicks, run your game. All right, we've got a lot to talk about. I want to start with 100 Days of Trump. What is my verdict on the first 100 days of Trump? This is what I voted for. I think if you are arguing, if you voted Trump, and I imagine a lot of you did, probably some of you did not, that's fine. If you voted Trump, I can't imagine you giving him anything other than an A or a B, right? I don't see C, I don't see D, I don't see F. If you didn't vote Trump, I can see how you could argue that, because all Trump has done in the first 100 days, if you paid attention to everything he said he was going to do, is deliver on exactly what he said he was going to do. And I think sometimes that surprises people because Trump views the political process as far less complicated than most people do. He says what he's going to do, and then he does it. And it's not revolutionary in practice because it's actually transactional. It's how business works. Trump brings business to politics. And a lot of times we're so used to politicians telling us things that they're going to do, and then they get in office and they don't do it at all. To me, and I've been arguing this for a while, but I think I can simplify it for you. There are essentially 3 things that are big systemic issues that Trump has tried to address in his first 100 days. One is the border. The border is shut down. It should be a far bigger story that after 4 years of allowing 10.5 million people in under Joe Biden, after illegal immigrants flooding this country, Trump, with the stroke of a bunch of pens, shut down the southern border. You probably may well have seen me talk with Tom Homan last Friday from the White House. Tom Homan ran through all the numbers with all of you, explaining exactly what he did, and Trump has shut down the southern border. Now, the deportation battle is a secondary part, because the first thing you have to do is stop everybody coming in. Second thing you have to do is start to send the people who are here illegally out. But he has so succeeded already in the first 100 days, frankly, the first 30 days, that the border is more secure than it has ever been in any of our lives. That's an incredible credit to Trump. All right, so that's big systemic issue one. By and large, Trump has addressed it. Big systemic issue two, and I continue to hammer this because it's so important and it's going to impact everybody. We've got a $36 trillion national debt, and we have to, in some way, balance our national debt and stop the national debt from continuing to skyrocket, because maybe it's not going to be in my life. Maybe it's going to be in my kid's life. Maybe it's going to be in my grandkids' life. At some point, the bill will become due on our $36 trillion in debt, and there will be consequences for us living off debt. I think they've already started. I think that's why you're seeing the rates on mortgages, for instance, credit card debt, car loans, not come back down, because the sugar high of free money is starting to be extracted from the economy. There are economic rules of reality. We are $36 trillion in debt. Elon Musk saw it. That's why Doge came in. Trump has tried to address the massive budgets that are in play and is trying to get that fixed. Point two. Point three, big, major, systemic issue that has to be addressed going forward. You've got the border, you've got the budget, and certainly now you have trade, okay? What is going to happen with trade? Trump is trying to address unfair trade practices so that, by and large, American products and American companies are more freely and fairly able to engage in trade. All of those are big undertakings. The border solved, although the outflow of the border is still going. The security of the southern border is there in a level we've never seen before. Cost, it seems to me, is being reined in due to partly the attention of Elon Musk. And then third, and I think this is so consequential, trade agreements being worked out going forward that are more beneficial to the United States are also underway, okay? All of these things are substantial and I think are incredibly consequential, and they are difficult. And I think that is why some people are frustrated who did not vote for Trump. I think the number of people who voted for Trump that are unhappy, very low. I think almost everybody who voted Trump would give him an A or a B because we paid attention and he's delivering on what we wanted. I think the swing voters who maybe didn't vote, the people out there that are giving a C or D or an F, either are Democrats or they are people that are waiting to see the results pay off. Inflation, by the way, coming down, 4-year low. I would say, if you asked me right now, Clay, what do you want Trump to most focus on over the next 100 days? To me, it's inflation. I want for people to have wages growing faster than the rate of inflation. It's a very simple thing, but that's how I would measure the national mood in many ways. It's, are your earnings growing faster than the cost of goods that you have to purchase? For basically the entirety of the Biden 4 years, the rate of inflation, that is what you had to pay for goods, exceeded your increase in overall income. And that's why so many people felt like the economy was not good, and everybody out there is lecturing you saying, actually, you don't know how good the economy is. No. I know what things used to cost. And I know what money I used to have in my wallet when I finished shopping at the grocery store. I finished filling up my gas tank. And that's not the reality now. I think what you are seeing is price of gas is down. price of real goods inside of grocery stores have started to decline on many different products, but are definitely growing slower than the rate of overall inflation and the rate of wage growth. That has to continue for several months, and then people will say, you know what, this is starting to work. I think it's going to start to fire on all cylinders once we get the new budget passed, which will give, and tax code passed, which will give some certainty to businesses out there when it comes to their overall cost. Okay, yesterday the Eagles went to the White House. I noticed something interesting, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. ESPN, by and large, it appears to me, has stopped, at least on their app, covering team visits to the White House. Am I wrong in this? I didn't see much about the Dodgers. I didn't see much about Ohio State. I didn't see much even about the Eagles, even when some players chose not to go. It's as if they have decided, hey, we're not going to cover this. And I'll even give a little bit of credit to ESPN. Yesterday, I was on their app, and they covered Trump making threats under Title IX associated with men competing in women's sports. I'm starting to think that they have seen at ESPN the growth of OutKick, and that they are recognizing, wait, the vast majority of sports fans actually agree with Clay Travis and OutKick on issues. Maybe we should adjust our crazy far left-wing sports coverage for Trump 2.0 in a way that keeps us from falling completely out of the loop as they did in Trump 1.0. Fingers crossed. We'll see whether or not that ends up happening, but I did notice that. Okay. I wanted to hit this. J.D. Vance was on 100th day of the Trump-Vance administration, and I asked him a question, which I was kind of curious about, because Ohio State played Notre Dame on the day of the inauguration. And it's cool, I would imagine, to raise the right hand and get sworn in as Vice President of the United States. That's kind of a flex. Not that many people have gotten to do that. But the college football fan in me was thinking, man, if the University of Tennessee was playing in a national title game, even if I got sworn in as the VP, even if I got sworn in as the President of the United States, I'd rather watch the game than go to my inaugural balls. And I would be thinking the whole time, like, what's the score of the game? Is there a big third down play? What's going on? And so I've legitimately wondered about this for a while, because J.D. Vance, a big Ohio State fan, the Buckeyes are playing against the Fighting Irish, national title game. And so on the show today, I said, hey, how do you keep tabs on the game, the national title game, which happened to overlap with Inauguration Day? Here was J.D. Vance's answer.
I actually talked to my team about whether it would be possible to skip the inaugural balls so that I would be able to go to the game. We'd get inaugurated, we'd go to a few parties, and then I'd be able to watch the game while the president took care of the inaugural balls. The team was not a huge fan of that. Apparently, it would have been unprecedented for the vice president to skip the inaugural balls the night of the inauguration. Before the first ball, I actually had all of my friends and family. We turned a big hotel room into a sports bar. And so I was able to watch the first quarter before the first ball. And then I think it was either right after the second or the third ball, Notre Dame started to come back a little bit. And so I sat in a room with like a 19-inch TV and just sort of watched the Buckeyes put it away. So I got to see a little bit of it, man. But what a cool day for an Ohio State fan to be inaugurated as a vice president and have your team win the national championship. Sad to miss most of the game, but official duties come first.
It's very funny, like, to think about the vice president as Notre Dame is making their comeback, finding like this tiny 19-inch television in some side room and trying to get a good feed so that he can tell what's going on in the game. I promise you that if I'm ever in any of these positions, I'm going to figure out. I also love that he said he tried to figure out if he could hop on Air Force Two and fly down to, I think the game was in Atlanta. Am I right about that? I think the game was in Atlanta, so it'd be a quick trip from D.C. to get down to Atlanta for the game. And he was told, that's kind of frowned upon. You probably need to go to all of the inaugural events. I wonder if President J.D. Vance would have skipped out, because then he gets to make the call. He's not just leaving the president to do all this stuff. Very funny in and of itself. Belichick. Guys, the fallout of the Belichick 72-year-old relationship with the 24-year-old after that disastrous CBS News interview is continuing. And I got to say, it really makes me wonder if Belichick has lost his fastball. Now, some of you out there, and I understand, you're like, let the man date whoever he wants. And I am actually in that camp. I think if you want to be as adults in a consenting relationship, I don't really have any issue with an age gap. Okay? I am 46 years old right now. My wife is basically the same age as me. I've been married for almost 21 years. So I'm not really in this category. But if you wanted to date somebody who was 20 years younger than you, 30 years younger, whatever can make you happy, I'm all about. But here is where I think this is a story worthy of talking about. Two fronts. One, Bill Belichick's entire coaching career prior to now was all about only football. The guy is legendary for not caring about anything social media, for not caring about anything external noise. If he were asked questions in his press conferences that he did not want to address, he would give one-word answers. He would show up in the hoodie, cut off sleeves. He clearly did not want anything to be a distraction other than his football team focused on the game. That was the entirety of what he wanted to be the story. I would love to interview Bill Belichick. I would happily travel anywhere for a long-form conversation with him. Let me just put that out clearly. But the way that he is behaving right now is the antithesis as UNC's coach as how he handled being the Patriots coach. I never knew anything about his relationships. I never knew anything about his off-the-field life. There was never pictures of him with a pretty girl or pictures of him with anybody from my life that I recall other than football itself. That's point one. So he is behaving differently as North Carolina's coach than he behaved as the Patriots coach. That is 100% fair, which makes me wonder, has he lost his coaching fastball? 72 years old. Most people don't have the same fire at 72 that they did at 32 or 42 or 52. Nick Saban just stepped down at 75 years old. Now, maybe you could say, hey, being with a 24-year-old is proof he's still got plenty of fire. And that could well be the case. But right now, Bill Belichick College, Chapel Bill, is very different than what we saw in New England. I think that's important. Second part here. You can't criticize the media for asking questions about your relationship when your relationship is put front and center as a reason people should be caring about you on social media. This reminds me somewhat of Meghan and Harry in the formerly royal family, arguing that they needed privacy while constantly demanding as much media attention as could possibly occur. Okay? Don't do a reality television show. Don't do multiple reality television shows and then complain that the media is covering you too much. It feels to me like Belichick and this Jordan Carter, is that her name? This 24-year-old are pulling a Harry and Meghan here where they are demanding that you pay attention to their relationship all the time. And then when you ask questions about it, getting angry that you are asking questions about it. Jordan Hudson. What in the world is going on here? So I think all of this coverage is completely fair. And I don't think there's any reason or ability that they should have to be able to complain. And now we got new letters that are coming out and all these other different things. I don't think the media has been unfair at all. Belichick has made this an issue. When she's physically present at the interview, it would be crazy not to be asking her, not to be asking about her. That's a big part of Belichick's story now. Okay, so that's my take on that. Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo took some shots jokingly. Let me just say this. I like both these guys. I would have Bill Simmons on my show. I would have Ryan Russillo on my show. Open invite to both. The room that I am in right now doing this show, Ryan Russillo has actually been in. He's been in my studio before. I don't know how many years ago it was. Maybe it was 2018. When did the Red Sox last win the World Series? We throw, and by we I mean my wife, throws a big Halloween party every year. I don't know, 100 people come in. My wife has all sorts of decorations. It's a big event. Every year, Halloween, we've had it a bunch in this house. Russillo came to the party one year. Russillo came to the party, walked in, and he was like, hey, man, the Red Sox, I believe, were in the World Series, had a big game, and he was like, can you just get me a television so I can watch the game? So he was at the party for was that 2018 maybe? He was at the party for I actually respected it. He was at the party for 5 minutes, and then he's like, dude, hey, can you get me a television? And I was like, sure. And I brought him all that. This is on the top floor of my house, third story of the house where I live, where I am right now doing the show. Brought him right up all the way to the top floor, put on the game, and I think he had a few beers, and he watched I checked on him a couple times. I think the Red Sox won that game, whatever that game was around Halloween. I think it was probably the World Series. And he just chilled out in this room right now. So clearly I would have him on the show. I've met Bill Simmons in person, like him, good dude. Obviously good friends with Sal, good buddy of mine. So I'd be happy to have him on. But they had some fun with us and OutKick on the podcast. And I'm not a guy who listens to the podcast things very often. I sound like an old man. I've got my own show, so I don't really pay a lot of attention, so I have no idea. But I was tagged in this, which is how I saw it on social media. So here are Simmons and Russillo talking about the NBA. Here's that clip.
This is one of the best 24-hour stretches the league's had in a while.
Yeah, Clay Travis. How about tweeting about the ratings?
Get Bobby Burack on that one.
Look, I realize group economics wasn't a great Jersey idea either.
Okay, so my offer, my show, your shows, whatever, I will come on and I will make the case for why the NBA has lit its brand on fire and why Adam Silver is the worst commissioner of any pro sports franchise commissioner in my life, how he has lit the legacy of Magic, Larry, Jordan, David Stern completely on fire, and how by letting people like LeBron and Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr destroy the NBA's brand. I wrote an entire book about it called Republicans Buy Sneakers Too. I'll make the case. Numbers are on my side. Data is on my side. The NBA has alienated a huge percentage of people who love basketball. And I wish they hadn't. Because I wish they hadn't shown up and put Black Lives Matter on the basketball court. And I wish they hadn't put random political slogans on the back of the jerseys, because the data reflects that they destroyed their brand. And I'll make the case. And then afterwards, people can be like, oh, you suck. I will thank Awful Announcing, by the way. I got to tell you, they really let Russillo have it. I don't know if we can put a picture up. They used a beautiful airbrush picture of me. I don't know how to airbrush anything. They took photos of me at Fox News, and they took photos of me for iHeart, for Clay and Buck, and they airbrushed me. Like, I don't wear makeup ever unless I'm in a television studio. So in my house, if you look at me, never any makeup on. And people are like, oh, you look old. No, I might look old. That's possible. I work all the time. But also, everybody that you see has makeup on television almost always. And so you are seeing a fundamentally inauthentic version of any person that you see in a television studio. They are made up like crazy. And if I'm in a studio, like when I was at the Fox Sports Studios in LA, I get made up. When I'm at the Fox News Studios in New York City, I get made up. But that airbrush photo, I look amazing. And let me just say, in defense of Russillo, somebody at Awful Announcing must hate him because they picked the least flattering photo imaginable that they used for the graphic where they wrote a story about us. And I'll also say this. I've been doing OutKick now for a long time. I barely open my mouth now, and there are stories about me and OutKick everywhere. Do you know how hard I had to work for anybody to pay attention to me for anything? And now I get Google alerts. We got a freaking PR guy. He's like, just so you know. He's like, just so you know, somebody's writing about you again. We got stories coming. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'll say it anyway. We got stories coming up in the New York Times, in the New Yorker, and in the Washington Post. All of those underway. We got all sorts of big interviews that are planned with anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. Suddenly, everybody pays attention to us and everybody loves it, and loves us or hates us, and I guess that's a good thing. But I do appreciate all of you having my back in the comments, and many of you make me laugh on a daily basis. So, again, reason I brought that up, I'll do a home and home. I'll go on your podcast, or if you don't want to have me on yours because you're afraid, oh, my goodness, you're going to talk to that racist Nazi. This is what some of their people would say in the comments. Or you can come on mine. I know then you're platforming a racist Nazi, whatever. Open invites out there in that respect. Saw this. And you guys know that I'm not the kind of guy who brags or draws attention to himself. Just not my thing. And let me say this, by the way, before I go back. How about Bobby Barack? 27 years old? Maybe the most influential sports writer on the internet right now? I'm not even kidding. How many people have more impact in sports media in terms of people reacting to the opinions that he puts out there from a writer perspective than Bobby Barack right now? 27. Came over to OutKick with me in May of 20 when we expanded 5 years ago now. I hired him at 22. He's still only 27 years old, having a lot of influence. That interview that he did, Mike Wilbon, fantastic. How many people writing on a daily basis on the internet are more influential than him right now in the world of sports? He may be number one in terms of provoking people reacting, positive or negative, to the perspectives that he puts out there. Speaking of number one, Fox News. This was from, let me make sure that I give him credit because I saw it initially shared by him, and I want to make sure. Tom Bevan, who does good work at Real Clear Politics, impressed with the balance that Real Clear Politics puts out on a day-to-day basis. It's one of the sites that I check out as part of my prep for the radio show. Fox News has 13 of the 14 highest rated shows in America on cable news. MSNBC has one. CNN doesn't have a single show in the top 25. And Fox News has, let me make sure I get this right, 14 of the top 16. All right, audience. The 5 biggest show on cable in the country. Great show, The 5. Second most popular show. Jesse Waters. I'll be on Jesse Thursday. Gutfeld, third most popular show. Fourth most popular show. Wall Street Journal had a really good write-up about him. Brett Baer, fourth most popular show on cable news in the country. Sean Hannity, I'll be on with him tonight. Longest running show in the history of cable news, still dominating. I'll be on with Hannity later tonight. Laura Ingraham, Will Kane, I was on with Will yesterday. The top 7 shows on cable news, all Fox News. Then Rachel Maddow is on nightly. I believe she's only on nightly for like the first 100 days. People like Rachel Maddow at MSNBC. I don't know why, but to her credit, they do. Then Outnumbered. Then the Faulkner Focus. I'll be on with Faulkner tomorrow. Harris Faulkner, great stuff. America's Newsroom. Love Bill and Dana. The Story. And America Reports. And then Fox News at night. Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. I don't really know who he is, but and then Fox and Friends. Pretty incredible roster of dominance, the likes of which we have never seen before in the history of cable news. Fox News is on a run. A lot of credit to a lot of people busting their ass at that network. 13 of the top 14 shows, if I didn't say it earlier, for the month of April, based on how everything is going down there. The month of April ends tomorrow, if some of you do not know. Okay. One more thing that I was going to hit. I wanted to, two more things. Usha Vance. You know what? Put a pin in this and remind me that I want to talk about it in more detail tomorrow. But we had J.D. Vance on the show earlier, Clay and Buck, and I was talking about it. And she's Indian. Her family is from India. She is an legal immigrant. And you know what's wild? Almost zero coverage of the fact that she, as the second first lady, what's it called? The second lady? There's the first lady. What is the wife of the vice president called? The second lady? Is that the right term? Second lady of the United States? I don't know. Look that up. She goes to India. I believe she and JD have 3 kids, young kids. Almost zero coverage of the fact that J.D. Vance is married to an Indian woman, and they go to the largest, most populous country in the world on a state visit, and she and her family are Indian. Wouldn't you think this would turn into a huge story? Can you imagine? I can only that India, they must have covered this thing like crazy to have J.D. Vance married to a woman of Indian descent, family legally immigrates to the United States. Usha Vance has to be one of the most famous people in India. And then they have 3 kids and they're traveling there with them. It's an incredible story. And there would seem to be a great deal of symbiosis. I would think this would be incredibly beneficial to the overall relationship between the two countries. And I would like to think that India and the United States could become even closer. And I saw almost zero coverage of it in the American media. If J.D. Vance were a Democrat, this would have been inescapable. If Kamala Harris had been elected and traveled to India, the fact that she had Indian family, I think her mom was Indian, right, would have been inescapable, except they decided that she was black and not Indian because they thought that was more politically potent. But her visit to India would have been covered as if it were one of the most phenomenal things in the history of the United States. She doesn't have kids of her own, but if she did, it would be an even bigger story. I don't even know that I read an article about it in a major American newspaper. And I'm a dork. I read still a lot of American newspaper coverage. It's extraordinary to me that it almost didn't happen. Second lady. It's not a great phrase. Second lady? First lady, great. Second lady? Like the side chick of the country? I don't know. I feel like we need another name than second lady. VP is kind of cool. There needs to be a better name for the second. Like, at least Emhoff was the first. Was he the second gentleman? What did they call him? I thought he got to be the first gentleman because there wasn't another dude, because there's the first lady and he could still be the first gentleman. I don't know. Second lady sounds like, hey, we like her, but then there's the other chick. It's like the side chick of America. We got to do better on the name. All right, one last thing. They called him the second gentleman? Well, he's kind of a pussy, so that probably fit. Doug Emhoff, I really don't like. That guy, you want to talk about somebody, that's the perfect analogy. Usha Vance went to Yale for law school, badass mom, got 3 young kids, goes to India, where her family immigrated from, crickets. Doug Emhoff, who cheated on his first wife and got the nanny pregnant, credibly is just walking around smacking chicks like crazy in his 40s, marries Kamala Harris, has kids that are all sorts of screw-ups, fawning media coverage. None of that comes out. You would think that Doug Emhoff was like George Washington reincarnated based on the way the media covered him. Usha Vance barely gets her name mentioned anywhere, even on a major international trip to India, where her family immigrated from. And by the way, it's the biggest democracy now in the world from a population perspective. Anyway, I want to go to India and visit at some point. I've heard it's amazing. But the disconnect between Doug Emhoff, who was a complete awful lout, and Usha Vance is actually indicative of how unfair the media is. I can't believe that story is barely told. And by the way, if I mispronounced her name, that's on me. I'm awful at pronunciation of names, but I think she deserves way more credit than she's getting. Finally, what was I going to hit here? The Nike trans study. We've got a story coming up soon that is going to, I think, be really bad for Nike. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but it makes what Bud Light did with that fake chick look like child's play. It doesn't even look like it's in the same universe. Nike, it appears, paid to fund transgender mutilation of minors to see how it might impact their athletic performance. We're on it at OutKick. A lot of people are still not paying attention to this story. Trust me, we are not leaving it. I think it is important that we study this. I think that it is important that we cover this. I think it is going to continue to be a big story here until Nike publicly apologizes for what they did and swears that they will never do it again. To be engaged in trans research of minors is barbaric and indefensible. And OutKick is probably the only sports media company in the world that will hold them accountable. And trust me, we are going to do it. More coming on this soon. All right. I love all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis. This has been OutKick the show. I will see you guys again tomorrow. And I'll see you tonight on Sean Hannity's show. Until then, like I say, DBAP unless you need to SBAP.